Back again for another breakdown of Georgia football. The Dogs are home for a second straight week, second of four in a row to start the season. It's Georgia and Ball State, the Cardinals from the MAC, visiting Sanford Stadium for the first time in school history. That'll happen this Saturday at 12 noon. And the radio broadcast starts bright and early at 8 a.m. Saturday morning. We hope you can join us for a full day of Georgia football. And joining us right now, Russ Tanner and D.J. Shockley. And we're going to talk a little Georgia football. Guys, a 48-7 win over UT Martin last Saturday. Good showing in your estimation. Let's get your thoughts on that first weekend out for the Dogs, Russ.
I heard Kirby say in his post-game press conference that he is never upset about a win. And at the end of the day, you're never going to look back at this game and say, man, we only won that game 48-7. Something was wrong. We knew the season was going on off the rails first game. So big win for the Dogs. Glad to win, glad to get the win like that. But I think there's plenty you can look as a coaching staff and say, we got to be a lot better here. We're not going to play UT Martin in the next 12 games in a row. And, Kirby echoed a lot of that in his post-game presser. And when the players being honest with themselves, there's going to be some stuff we can hit on today. I'm sure that they've got to execute a lot better. They've got to go out there and play with a sense of urgency, no matter if we're playing UT Martin or we're playing University of Alabama. And it didn't seem to always be there Saturday. First game's out of the way. The jitters are done. It's time to crank it up now.
And I think Russ, you're spot on with that, talking about some of the jitters. And you can see some of the guys. There were a lot of guys who this is their first opportunity to play inside Sanford Stadium with 92,000 plus there. And then there's other guys like a Carson Beck who's getting their first start, who's been inside the stadium, but it's different, as you know, when you get that first start and now you're the guy. So I think a lot of guys went through that in that first quarter and a half, trying to acclimate to what it's like to actually have a bigger role on his team. And I think we saw more of what we wanted to see in the second half. And I get the opportunity to be in there at halftime, and he challenged the entire team. He challenged the offense. He challenged the defense. He challenged them on special teams on that opening, kickoff return to, hey, let's go put these guys away. So he wasn't pleased with the first half, even though you're up by whatever amount it is. There were still a bunch of things that you could look at that ball game, and I know they turned on the tape and said, man, here are 3, 4, 5 plays where we just one guy executes one way or another, the outcome is different. So I love the fact that, hey, you didn't look your best in the first half, but in the second half, you look more like the team everybody expected you to do, and you kind of showed up and played that way.
It made me laugh being in the stands with my kids. My kids are 14, 12, 11, and 4. And they don't know anything other than Georgia being great. So it was hilarious to me in the stands to watch fans overreact after 2 drives of the first game with all these brand new starters. So, I feel really good that we're going to get back on track. Hopefully the Ball State week is the week we see that happen. So, we'll see.
Let me go back to something you guys mentioned a second ago about jitters in that first game. First of all, what does that feel like, first game jitters? And second, does that continue through the season? Do we have game 14 jitters? Do we have game 15 jitters and all of that? And does that make you play poorly if you're anxious and eager and nervous?
Scott, I think the word when you think about jitters that you just mentioned is anxious. And I think there's jitters before every ball game. And I think it's because it's a new opportunity to play. You're playing for the number 1 team in the country. You're playing against X, Y, and Z. But I look at jitters sometimes as good. Sometimes it's nervousness. Sometimes it's anxiousness. You're ready to go. I don't think you get to, like you said, week 13, 14 or whatever, and you have those jitters where you're like nervous about what am I going to do when I get in the game. I don't think that happens. I think after, 1, 2, 3 ball games, those kind of jitters go away. But you still have the anxiousness of jitters of, I'm getting ready to play a major college football game. And if you don't have that kind of energy, if you don't have that kind of attitude going into a game, then it probably don't mean as much to you. So I remember going into every ball game having some kind of anxiousness about it because I wanted to play well. I wanted to, not let my teammates down. Those are the kind of anxious jitters that I had when I played. It wasn't more of, okay, man, I'm going to go play in front of 92,000. It was, I want to do the best I can for my teammates. We put in all the work this offseason. I want to make sure I'm putting my best effort. Those are the kind of, I think, anxious jitters that players have as the season goes on, is just putting out their best output.
Shock, you can remember we played the 2005 SEC championship game against LSU in the Georgia Dome. That's a lot different feeling than when you play the University of Middle Idaho early on in the year. Different types of jitters, but as long as you learn how to control those and channel them, it can turn out, like Shock said, to be a positive for you if you can turn that into energy into the game.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the matchup with Ball State. Is this one going to be similar than week one? Is this a more difficult opponent, a more challenging opponent? What are your initial thoughts on this? DJ, we'll start with you.
I think you got to start with what this team looks like this year in one game. And obviously you can go back and see some of the stuff they did last year, but there's always different personnel in every ball game. But you go back and you look at the Kentucky game. I mean, they gave Kentucky a lot to handle in that first half, and we're even up for majority of that first half in that ball game. And there are a bunch of players on that team that can make you kind of say, all right, this is somebody we got to pay attention to. And I think they got an offensive line that, 4 out of the 5 guys have played. They've got 20-plus starts, so that tells you they got experience. They played 2 quarterbacks last week. One came in and played pretty well on the backstretch of it. So they got some players on this team that you have to prepare for. And it's going to be an interesting ball game how you go out and do it. But I think ultimately, Kirby mentions it every week. Yeah, we got an opponent, but ultimately our own opponent is Georgia. And if we go out and play to that standard, we play the way that we want to play and how we should play, it shouldn't matter who we're playing. But yeah, Ball State's going to absolutely give you a couple concerns here and there. But at the end of the day, I think Georgia has enough talent and the way they're built that, hey, it doesn't matter what Ball State does. It's all about what Georgia does.
Yeah, you don't want to disrespect an opponent, right? And I mean, fans and people watching get mad sometimes. Like, why do coaches speak in the same way? Why do y'all always say we got to respect and we got to do this? Because you prepare the same way. It doesn't matter if you play Ball State or you play LSU. You prepare the same way. The fact of the matter is, Georgia, like Shock said, has a talent gap that is a lot wider when we're playing the Ball States of the world than when we play the other SEC big boys later on in the year. So, is it going to be different than UT Martin? Who knows? Momentum is a crazy thing. If Georgia comes out and executes in the passing game, and what do we mean by that? If you go back and rewatch some of the game, especially early, on some of the timing routes where Carson was throwing the ball to Arian Smith, trying to hit Dylan Bell or whoever it was, they just weren't in sync. So they'd be coming out of their route at the top, and when they come out of the route, the ball's a second late. The ball's a second early. And little plays like that throughout the game change how well your offense performs. So we talk about execution, and that's the types of things we're talking about, right? It may be an offensive lineman, they're supposed to double team the nose and get up to the mic backer, and they miss him. Well, experience in games helps you get there. There's no practice that takes the place of game experience when it comes to being ready to play. So we talk about execution. Those are the things we're talking about. So the hope now is that Georgia does execute against Ball State in the way that we didn't, especially in the first half against UT Martin, that Carson Beck and his receivers are on the same page. So they come out of that break at the top of the route, they turn and the ball hits them. When the linemen know what they're doing, they get a certain look on defense, they make the proper call, and they get to the backer. Nobody runs through. And if you clean up a few little things like that, how you're running your offense, you end up rolling teams like UT Martin or Ball State. If you come out and you're out of sync, you think you're just going to roll out there on your red and black carpet and just march towards your third national championship, you're going to struggle early and you're going to look really bad. So, we'll find out really quickly. By about 12:15 on Saturday, you'll know which Georgia team shows up and how they're ready.
Yeah, it's really never really the skill guys. It's always the big guys up front. So, I mean, Russ is talking about these guys that
play well.
They got to play better, man. Let's be honest.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I threw the O-line in there with the receivers as well.
When there's a talent gap, Rush, as you mentioned, between two teams, is it usually more beneficial? And I don't know if this question's going anywhere, but I'll ask it anyway. Is it more beneficial for defense or offense when there's a wider talent gap? Where is most of the talent, in your estimation, on a football team?
Man, yeah, I don't really know how to answer that question in a way that makes sense. But defense can make up for a lot of talent on defense, cover a whole lot of flaws when it comes to your assignment, alignment, all that. Malachi Starks doesn't have to line up in the right place, but if he's a lot faster than the guys he's covering, for his offense, if you make a mistake, especially on the O-line, the pretty boys like Shock, Carson Beck, Stetson Bennett, they get really upset when they get hit in the back of their head and don't see a guy coming.
That is true. Very true. I mean, makes perfect sense. I mean, Sky, you don't like get hit in the back of your head either, right? So, I mean,
no, I don't. It's been a while. What does that feel like when that left tackle misses a block and you get hit in the back of the head?
That's one of those scenarios where you say, you know what? I don't think I want to take this guy out to eat this week. Maybe he needs to study more. So,
well, the advantage of that, it would be a targeting penalty in most cases.
Yeah.
One unique thing about this Ball State team is the running back, Marquez Cooper. We saw him last year with Kent State, and he had a pretty good game. Kent State played Georgia well last year, I thought. He rushed for almost 100 yards in that ball game. Just your general thoughts on these guys. I know we got a lot of new players on defense this year, but seeing a guy that's a veteran running back like that for the second straight year.
Yeah, you know what's funny is I had a chance to talk to Kamara Lassiter and Michael Williams, and they both mentioned that, like, dang, I remember that dude. That dude was shifty. He was tough. He ran hard. Those are the kind of things that they talked about, and they kind of perked him up a little bit, like, okay, here's a player that we already know who has this kind of ability. So maybe their focus changed a little bit because it wasn't just a nameless face or nameless name that they didn't know. This was a guy that presented some issues for you last year. So you go into this game already saying, all right, well, we know they have one guy who can get it done because he did it to us last year. I thought Kent State, like you mentioned, Scott, was a really tough challenge because of the way their offense was made. I think Ball State will absolutely look at some of the things that UT Martin did where they had a little bit of success going fast and trying to keep Georgia vanilla. And I think Ball State would come into this game and have some of those wrinkles and also be able to use Cooper in multiple ways, whether it was out in the backfield or, whether it was, trying to scheme him up in ways to get him the football. But this will be a matchup that I know it has Georgia's attention already because, like you mentioned, they seen this dude last year and he had success.
Well, guys, good to see you again. Thanks for your time once again. Georgia and Ball State on Saturday at noon between the hedges. Official kick time is 12:03. Radio coverage starts at 8 a.m. on Saturday on the Bulldog Sports Network. Again, thanks to Russ and DJ. I'm Scott Howard. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.